Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to cross the Øresund once again and go back to Copenhagen in Denmark, and we're going to revisit one of my favourite Danish craft breweries, and this review should be quite interesting. It's been about 3 months since I last reviewed a beer from these guys, and this is a style that I've never tried from them before, so always interesting to do things like this. For this review then we are going to go to Kastrup to the south of Copenhagen, and we're having a look at another beer from Amager Bryghus. So this one is the Panzer Pils, which comes in at 4.6% ABV. And as the name suggests, this one is a Pilsner style beer. And you might notice that this one is a little bit different in appearance from the other Amager Bryghus beers that I've reviewed for you before. This is the very first beer that they ever released in a can, and they started releasing their cans, I think, in July of 2020. So yeah, this one should be quite interesting. You can see the can is sweating a little bit because of the heat that we're getting here in Scandinavia over the summer. But yeah, this is the very first lager beer that I've tried from these guys, and I think the can is kind of a good compromise, if you like. I say that because when I first started buying the Amager beers back in 2015, when I moved over here to Sweden, they were big half-litre bottles, so you paid a bit extra for them, but to me this was a treat at the time. Having the Danish beers was a bit of a treat actually, so I loved, you know, having the big half-litre to kind of sit and enjoy. And I think most of the Amager stuff I was trying at that time was a little bit kind of boozy and special, you know, the Herr Fredriksson Imperial Stout, the Batch 1000 and things like that, you know, those were really pretty damn special beers in my mind. But then yeah, they changed I think in 2018 to doing the 330ml, and I thought, you know, I can see why they did it, because they wanted to have more bottles to export and things like that, get their name out there a little bit more. But I just felt, you know, 330ml just wasn't quite enough beer, you know, having been used to the half-litre from these guys. So now I think the 440ml can is a good compromise. You know, 440ml is a pretty good kind of middle ground, if you like. It's, yeah, pretty much bang in the middle. But yeah, this one should be really interesting. Definitely cool to try my first lager beer from Amager Bryghus. Always nice to try different styles from these guys, of course, because they are a pretty damn solid brewery in that way, in my opinion, and definitely nice to have the first beer that they ever canned on the channel as well. So yeah, let's see how we get on with this one. Always nice to review some Danish beers for you, and in particular some Amager Bryghus beers. I really like this brewery actually. It's definitely one of the breweries that I want to feature on the Meet the Brewery segment, so I will need to talk to Morten and Jakob about that at some point. We'll need to see what we can do there. But yeah, as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Amager Bryghus before. You will definitely see more from these guys in the near future. There's all the usual social media down there as well. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlist of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Danish beers that I've reviewed for you. That's constantly being added to, and as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Amager Bryghus then, on to my brewery notes. So Amager Bryghus, as I've mentioned to you already, are based in Kastrup to the south of the main central part of Copenhagen, Denmark, very close to the airport, and these guys are probably one of the best known Danish craft breweries these days, and they're one of the more established craft breweries there as well. But the brewery itself was established back in April of 2007 by two friends, Morten Valentin Lundsbak and Jakob Storm, and both of these guys had been avid home brewers for a number of years. Apparently in school the pair were forced to do a chemistry and physics project together, and they wrote about the fermentation process that went on in beers, and they were just kind of hooked from there. So they continued to homebrew for a number of years. Both went on to gain their brewing diplomas from the Scandinavian Brewing School in 2008, which is I believe attached to Copenhagen University. Very nice and very prestigious university here in Europe, of course. They gained their diplomas in 2008, and then the company has gone on to become very highly decorated since that time. So the first brewery that they had was in Tornby, again in the southern part of the city. And they've been constantly expanding over the last few years. They had to buy a whole new brewing kit in 2011, which took their capacity up to around 250,000 litres of beer per year, but in total they managed to reach a capacity of 400,000 litres of beer per year in the first brewery before they had to move. So they moved to a new site in 2018. which was closer to the airport, and this pretty much doubled their capacity, and I think they do have further room for expansion there with more tanks and things like that. They opened up their tap house bar in Copenhagen next to Nørreport station, which is very, very nice. I need to film an out and about video there. That's definitely a place I want to have once again. That was opened in March of 2019, and since then, I believe in early 2020, I think maybe January or February, they opened up their new bar in Amager, which is called Bryghus, and that one was just kind of opened out of opportunity because the space became available, and apparently it's doing pretty well. So yeah, I need to go and check that one out at some point as well. But as of August 2020, these guys have produced around 270 different kinds of beer, and they're always doing some really, really interesting stuff. I can't get all the stuff that these guys produce actually, because it's, you know, they're so prolific. To bring in orders from Denmark and things like that is a little bit difficult. You do get quite a few of their beers through like Glassbank and things like that. So I can get a hold of the different Amager beers, but I prefer to go over to Copenhagen and get a selection of Danish stuff and things. So yeah, I always make sure that I pick up one or two things from Amager Bryghus every time that I go across there. But yeah, these guys, 270 beers in 13 years, I think that's a pretty damn good return actually. You will see a new beer from these guys at least once a month actually. So yeah, my favourite beers that I've had from these guys over the years, the Bastard Princess was really nice, their first New England IPA that they did. The Batch 1000 I still think is one of the best West Coast IPAs that's been produced in Europe. I do hope we see that in a can at some point. I'd love to take that over to Japan for my friend Nevitt to review at the Japanese craft beer channel. That would be awesome, and it'd be cool to take it over to the guys in England and to the Netherlands as well, because that's a very, very nice beer. And of course the legendary Herr Fredriksen. Those are probably my three favourite beers that I've had from these guys so far. They're very, very solid, I mean, but those are just three beers that are a bit nostalgic for me and that I really enjoyed. The Red Cap, the Scotch Ale, was also a very nice one that I had recently as well actually. So yeah, that's all I can really tell you about Amager Bryghus for the moment. Check out some of their beers, you know, Winter in Bangalore's a really interesting one, Indian hops in that from what I remember, and also the Arctic Sunstone I remember being a really nice pale ale as well actually. That was an awesome beer. So yeah, definitely one of the Danish breweries you want to check out if you are particularly interested in Danish craft beer. But yeah, let's get on and actually have a taste of this beer then. You can see the can is still sweating because of the lovely summer we're having here in Scandinavia. But as you can see, the artwork on this one is once again absolutely fabulous. The last beer actually that I had from these guys was actually a tribute to the artist's son that was born, Walter the Baby Bat. That was a really nice New England IPA. I forget if it was a double or a single, but yeah, you can see the artist's name on there, Simon Hartvig Dalgaard. So yeah, his artwork on the Amager beers is pretty damn special, I have to say. But yeah, on the side here it says, in early medieval warfare, knights riding with heavy body armour faced several major challenges, the worst of which was due to the horses' movements, that they would suffer a spillover from the chalice of the ale in their hand, making their breastplates go all rusty. After years of research, contemporary weaponsmiths concluded that it was the combination of ale yeast and British hops that caused the armour to rust, and since then most knights seemingly prefer British ales as their drink of choice. Nothing much could be done about it. The problem, however, remained, and during the Crusades the rusting knights proved to be easy prey, since the pagan arrows would go straight through. As the situation was getting out of control, rumours started to spread that someone somewhere in Europe might have come up with a solution, and as with all things metallurgic, real quality craftsmanship had to come out of Germany. At his castle deep in the forests of Schwaben, Graf Hilferding von Schangut had been secretly researching into the issue of rusting body armour due to beer spill. Graf Hilferding, in cooperation with his Schloss Barrelmeister, had simply come up with a different style of beer based on bottom fermenting yeast and quality German hops. This beer didn't make the armour, or Panzer in German, go rusty. It made the Panzer all shiny and utterly impenetrable. A new beer was born, and its name was the Pilsner, after Graf Schanguth's much beloved Brauermeister Manfred Pils. Also taste-wise, the new creation proved much superior to the poor British ales. Soon knights all over Europe would change their preference to this excellent new German beer to take it with them anywhere they rode, and that's why Pilsner to this day is the most loved of all beers, no matter where you go. So yeah, you always get an interesting story out of these Amager Bryghus beers. I would love to know who actually writes these. I don't know if it's Morton or a Jakob, or maybe it's Papso. that writes these stories. I'm not sure who it is, but yeah, the thing that's always cool about these beers as well is they tell you what hops and things they put in them. So this one has a malt base of Pilsner and Carapils, and it's got hops, Czech Satsop, or Žatec as the Czechs call it, and Hallertau middle fruit, the Hallertau middle spring hops. So yeah, this one should be very, very interesting. But 4.6% ABV, a little bit stronger than Pilsner Urquell, which I believe was the first commercial Pilsner brewed by a German in that would have at the time been the Austro-Hungarian Empire. But yeah, Pilsner Urquell was the very first Pilsner beer from what I understand. Apparently the brewmaster that created it was not very nice, but yeah, this one, named of course, it is named after the city of Pilsen, or Pilsner as it was known in Germany. But yeah, I do like the artwork on this one. I think I'll need to keep this can as the very first one that Amager Bryghus canned. But yeah, my first lager beer from these guys as well. So without further ado, let's get this out and we will get on with the tasting. It smells very authentic already. Really curious to see how this beer turns out. So yeah, as I've been telling you on the channel, I've been going through a bit of a lager phase recently, and then when I saw this, I think I saw this beer on Facebook, I was like, you know, Amager Bryghus, I've never tried a lager from these guys, I really need to. But yeah, just look at the beautiful artwork on that there. Simon Hartvig Dalgard, very talented man in my opinion. But yeah, let's see how this one turns out then. So as you can see, this is actually quite a hazy Pilsner. I guess it depends where you get it from. It really just depends brewery to brewery whether you get what exactly you get from a Pilsner. Sometimes they can be crystal clear, sometimes they'll be hazy. You can see that this beer poured with about a 2/3 finger of a frothy white head. That is just fading away to be a very, very thin foamy layer. There's one or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, a few little ones going up towards the bottom of the head there, and that is just fading away to be a very, very thin foamy layer. But it does look pretty damn nice, I have to say. If I put my fingers behind the glass, you can see this beer does have a degree of haze to it, but it's a lovely, bright, pale golden yellow straw colour actually. I really like how this goes together. So yeah, let's take a closer look at the aroma then and just see how we get on with this one. I'm very, very curious to see what this beer's like, but I can tell you when you open up the can it does smell very, very authentic. And yeah, straight away with this one you can tell German malts and German hops, and well, noble hops we should say, because one of the hops is Czech, but it does smell very, very authentic, this one. I'm really looking forward to this. So yeah, with this one then, straight away with this beer you get a little bit, you do get that lovely kind of crisp Pilsner malt. I always find Pilsner malt very difficult to describe because it's just got that very kind of it's got that real kind of crisp almost, I don't know if you can call it astringency, but it's got that really sharp crispness to it, and you can smell that straight away with this one. So you can smell a little bit, you can smell that kind of slightly white bready note just underneath. This isn't too bready a Pilsner, of course it is really leaning towards that crisp end of the spectrum, but you can smell a little bit of a McVitie's digestive biscuity sort of thing in the backbone here. I'm almost getting a wee tiny touch of earthiness out of this one, slightly yeasty earthiness, that's interesting. Yeah, there's a teeny little bit of that in there, but otherwise the beer smells very, very light and very crisp. So yeah, a little bit of a kind of white bready note to it, a little bit of a kind of biscuity, you know, that kind of, the carrot, it's obviously the Carapils that's giving you this. You've got that lovely little bit of a kind of, there is a tiny bit of a rich caramel to it, but mainly it's quite biscuity and quite grainy. And then otherwise you've got that very crisp Pilsner sharpness to it, which is really very, very nice. This beer, it's one of the more crisp smelling Pilsners that I've come across actually. But it smells very, very nice. The more that you smell this one, of course, the more that your nose kind of smoothens out with this one. So this is quite interesting. Pardon me. I really like how that goes together actually. This one does come across as, pardon me, very, very authentic. I've had some really good lager beers recently from Swedish breweries, so this is the first one I've had from a Danish brewery in quite a while actually. But yeah. So for me, another very good lager in Denmark at the moment, incidentally, is the Slow Burn Octopils. I wanted to get a can of that when I was in Kiosk, but unfortunately they didn't have it. But I did manage to get another very nice beer from Slow Burns, which you'll see reviewed shortly. But yeah, This one is really nice. You're getting the typical notes that you would expect out of the Jatet, Sats, and the Metal Fruit hop in this one. There's a little bit of earthiness to it, but quite a bright earthiness, if you like. Some nice little herbal notes there, but the herb, of course, with the noble hops, the herbal notes are in the background, whereas in the English hops, they are a little bit more forward. You've got a nice little bit of a kind of spicy floral aromaticity out of this one. I do find this one is a little bit spicy, actually, and I think that's contributing to the very kind of crisp nose that the beer has. But you've also got a nice little bit of that lighter, grassy quality to this one as well. In terms of the fruity notes, you've got that typical kind of sort of peary, slightly appley sort of thing out of this one, and a bit of that kind of lemony, grassy, citrusy quality. So I mean, to be honest with you, the Pilsner, it's a beautiful style of beer, and I have to admit I'm with them all the way. I prefer my traditional German beers to the traditional English ones, to be quite honest with you. I love the lager beers, especially Dunkels and Doppelbocks. I love a good Helles as well. But this one to me, the Pilsner style of beer, it's not one of the ones that is really kind of very forthright in its aroma. If you have had a few of these beer styles, you know what to expect, and the way that we should rate these beers is in terms of authenticity, and they've got a very authentic aroma here, so you just have to give them a thumbs up for this one. So this has got everything you would expect of a Pilsner beer. So let's have a look at the taste then and see how we go on. Take a bit of time to enjoy the aroma, of course, because that is half the experience with craft beer, but we're going to have a look at this beer now. This one is the Panzer Pils, coming in at 4.6% ABV from Amager Bryghus in Kastrup in Copenhagen. Let's get stuck into this one. Sláinte, skål. That's pretty solid, actually. I like this one. Yeah. One of the more oily pills, I think, that I've had recently. I have to say, it does come across as a little bit oily. Which yeast are they using in this one? Yeah, so the lager yeast. I've had a few lagers like this. It's interesting because I find that the yeast that I'm having in this one, it has a little bit of that almost, it does have a wee kind of touch of a slightly farmhousey vibe to it. There's a little bit of woodiness and a little bit of just a little bit of that woody, kind of very slightly earthy note coming out of the yeast here, because you get it if you go to the back of your palate. For me, it has a little bit of woodiness, it has a little bit of a kind of earthiness there, and that's kind of interesting. It almost makes me think more of like an ale yeast or like a kind of Vermont yeast or whatever. It does just say lager yeast in here, so yeah, I'm curious about that. It doesn't say exactly what type of lager yeast, it just says lager yeast, but to me it comes across with a little bit of a little bit of almost like that slightly Vermonty, farmhousey type thing. There's a little bit of that, but otherwise the beer is very, very crisp, but you'll notice that flavour kind of lingers into the aftertaste. So yeah, that's an interesting point to make about this beer, the yeast, because you could pick up a little touch of that in the aroma, but not very much. It does come out a little bit more in the flavour, I think, though. But yeah, it's a nice Pilsner, this one. I will say this is pretty damn solid. Yeah, that is nice. So yeah, I like how this one, I do like how this one goes together. Where to start with the flavour then? We've already commented a little bit on the yeasty notes of the beer. So yeah, straight away in the middle of your palate, then you get that lovely kind of you get that lovely kind of white bready quality that just blankets the middle of your palate. You can feel that this beer, it is quite crisp in the beginning, but then it really does smooth out a little bit more the further you go into the aftertaste. In the very centre of your tongue, you've got a little touch of caramel to it, and as you move further out from the centre there's a little bit of a kind of more biscuity crispness to the beer. And as you go towards the back of the palate, like I said, there's a little bit of woodiness in there. There's a little bit of a kind of sort of earthy quality to it as well, and that is pretty nice actually. So yeah, it's kind of interesting how that all goes together. But yeah, very kind of much what you would expect from a Pilsner malt base, to be honest with you. I like this one. The more you go into the aftertaste, I think it does build a little bit more sweetness, and I love Carrot Pils malt. Carrot Pils is one of my favourites actually. I really like how that goes together. But in terms of the hoppy side of the beer then, back corners of the palate, you have got a nice little bit of earthiness there, and that builds a good complement with the slightly woody, earthy kind of notes you're getting from the yeasty side of this beer. So yeah, when you go into the back third of your tongue, it's markedly more bready. It's got a little bit more of that woodiness to it and a little bit of that kind of graininess too. But yeah, back corners of your palate's definitely a little bit more earthy. As you move further along the side of the palate there, it does get a little bit herbal, but as you reach the front corners of the palate, it's got a nice little bit of that kind of spicy note. From what I remember, the Sats hop is a little bit brighter and more spicy than the Hallertau or the Tettnanger hops are from Germany, and you do get that in this beer actually. It does have quite a bright floral quality to it in my mind. Yeah, floral notes I think are pretty bright in this one. I would say this is actually, it's definitely one of the kind of smoother. It's interesting because it smells as if it's going to be very, very crisp in the it smells as if it's going to be like very, very crisp in the aroma, but it also smells as if it, you know, it comes across as very, very smooth in terms of the flavour. Actually, it's one of the smoother pilsners, and it's slightly oily as well, which I think is quite interesting. So yeah, this one's got a really interesting flavour combination to it, I have to say. Round the front curve of the palate, it's a little bit lighter and grassy, which is what you'd expect, and then on that front third of the palate, that's where you get the nice kind of fruity esters pushing their way out of the beer. So for me, this one has, it's kind of got, again, what you would expect. It's got a good little bit of citrusy zestiness to it. So yeah, it's got a good little bit of citrusy zestiness to it, and when you take it in, there's a good little bit of that kind of lemony, grassy note, and that lingers there on the front edge of the tongue. But when you go further back from it, it does have a wee bit of a kind of more peary type ester to it. There's a wee bit of an appley note there, and there's maybe even a wee teeny little bit of like an apricot, something very kind of smooth, and things like that. There is a bit of a slightly lighter note to this one on the fruity side of things, but I mean overall, it's an interesting beer. I think this one comes across quite differently in the flavour to what it does in the aroma. As I say, it's got a little bit of a more yeasty character to it, and it's a bit smoother than the very, very crisp smelling aroma would have you believe. So that's a very interesting note about this beer, I think, for sure. So yeah, in terms of the mouthfeel then, let's talk about the mouthfeel of this one then. So this one to me, it's a light bodied beer generally, but I think it's one of the kind of slightly bigger bodied pilsners that I've had. Yeah, carbonation for me is very, very smooth. It's got a little bit of an oily character to it, like I said. In terms of IBUs and things, I think this beer's probably, you know, around the 20-25 mark. There's not too much in the way of IBUs out of this one. The malt base is very, very smooth. There is a slight degree of sweetness to it. And it's also, yeah, it's got a little touch of sweetness in there as well. You've got a nice little bit of a kind of juicy, fruity quality to this one as well. The fruitiness comes out as being quite smooth a little bit later on as well. This is a beer that definitely kind of smooths out, and it's definitely one of the slightly smoother pilsners, I think. It's definitely fair to say this is one of the smoother pilsners that I've had in recent times, and I've been reviewing a lot of pilsners and lager beers actually. I've been going through a bit of a lager phase on the channel, as I've told you. But yeah, this one, to me, it's really solid. It's almost like a pilsner that's got just a little bit of an ale type quality to it. As I say, the yeasty notes and the smoothness that it has means that it comes out as a little bit more kind of ale-like, in my opinion. But I like this. I certainly wouldn't hesitate to drink that again. As I said, I do need to get out to the tap house bar and the Bryggen bars and do a little bit of out and about filming, and I would love to do a Meet the Brewery interview with Morten and Jakob as well. That would be really fun, so I need to contact them about that and see if they would like to do it. But yeah, I would certainly want to try this as one of my kind of I'd love to try this on tap and do it as one of my kind of beer flight tasting things that I do. But yeah, a lovely beer once again from Amager Bryghus. I'd love to see these guys have a go at like a Doppelbock and a Dunkel and some more of the traditional German beers. I'm trying to remember if these guys have done, I think they have done a few sour beers. They've used Brettanomyces, but I don't know how much in the way of Berliner, I can't remember how much in the way of Berliner Weisses and Goses and things these guys have done, but it'd be cool to see them do like a traditional Berliner Weisse and a traditional Gose and Dunkel and Alt beer and things like that. I think these guys would do a really nice job of that. But yeah, definitely cool to try my first lager beer from these guys, and I think my first German style beer from them as well, come to think of it. But yeah, let's leave it at that for this one. This one was the Panzer Pils 4.6% Pilsner style beer from Amager Bryghus in Kastrup in Copenhagen. Definitely nice to return to these guys after 3 months. One of my favourite Danish craft brews, as I said. My first German style beer from these guys, my first Pilsner, and also the very first beer that these guys released in cans. So yeah, awesome beer to review. So once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Amager Bryghus as well. We will no doubt return to these guys at some point in the near future. But thank you again for watching it. Check out my social media, check out Amager Bryghus, go and check out the Brewing and Tap House bars in Copenhagen, and you will see an out and about video filmed there at some point very soon. Thanks again for watching. I'll catch you guys later. Slàinte, skål. Make sure you check out the Panzer Pils, 4.6% Pilsner, very very smooth, slightly oily I think, from Amager Bryghus in Kastrup in Copenhagen. Cheers.